Hello fellow travelers, my name is SG and welcome to the channel. Today, since the Ghostbusters movie is coming back this month, I thought I would like to focus on one of their comic books that they have done, part of their ongoing series. But I didn't want to do just any one of their storylines, I want to do a crossover they did. A crossover that starred both the comic book versions themselves, which is technically the movie version, and the 1990s cartoon series, called Get Real Ghostbusters. So, without further ado, let's get started, shall we? Get Real Ghostbusters was the combination of the Real Ghostbusters and the Ghostbusters comic that came out in about 2016, I like to believe. And it was a crossover event that spanned maybe about 4 books or maybe just the one graphic novel. The graphic novel itself is only 100 pages itself. And it is a very fun read. It's very good, especially if you're familiar with both the properties. Well, not properties, but both the material. Because they're both very different. The Real Ghostbusters is very campy, very lighthearted, very funny. While the comic book series Ghostbusters is a little darker, still funny, but tends to ground itself in more reality. Also, the ghosts are vastly different compared to each other. The Real Ghostbusters has fought gods, they fought Cthulhu, they fought, in this one, Proteus. Proteus is the main antagonist in this one, who himself is a Greek god, self-proclaimed at least. So, this is about the Real Ghostbusters coming across this spirit that was in the comics. I mean, not the comics, the series. Because this is an actual episode of the show where they disappeared for a minute. It is always hinted at what happened to them and it's shown. But in this one, we kind of get more of a long version of it. Because we get the end result in the cartoon where they won, they beat him, and ended up going back home. In this one, it has them going through an extra dimensional situation where they meet another version of themselves. And this really does tip off into more of a bigger thing later on in the Ghostbusters universe. The storyline in itself is very simple. It's Proteus is hunting the Real Ghostbusters down so that he can keep them in his trophy room because of how well of a fight they put up against him. And that, in his eyes, is something that's worth more than anything else. And it's up to the comic book version of the Ghostbusters to help try to send them back home while at the same time defeating Proteus on his own terms. And we do meet a lot of other side characters that go both ways in both the The Real Ghostbusters story and the comic book version. I don't want to spoil too much because, like I said, it in itself is not a long book, but it is worth the read. It's a fun, very bubbly kind of read. You can definitely find it on Amazon and check it out yourself. It is very good. The artwork is very eye-catching. It's very smooth and very easy to follow. It doesn't take a minute for you to adjust to it. And it does have a lot of contradicting stuff. Because, like I said, this is a crossover between a cartoon that came out in the 90s. So the two dimensions look different. They are act different. And that in itself is interesting. Because we get the regular gray one-piece suit in contradiction to the multi-tone that the Real Ghostbusters has. And of course, the way they look and is different compared to each other. I mean, we got Egon with blonde hair, Ray with ginger type hair. It's very funny, very interesting, and it's even fun to have them pointed out themselves amongst each other. So, the artwork does complement the story, and it does leave a bigger impact later on. The characters are actually pretty diverse in this because they are in 2 different eras. The Real Ghostbusters is set in the 90s, while the comic Ghostbusters tries to set itself more in a realistic 90s, more of going into the 2000s, which is a fun take on it, and not an official take, but just mine. And we can really see that the comic book version of the Ghostbusters is a little more cynical, a little more realistic, and a little more grown up compared to the Real Ghostbusters. Just look at Peter. He tries to spend a minute with himself, and he can't do it. He finds it hard to even get along with himself. And he's pretty much the only one that doesn't care to spend time with himself. The rest act as if it's natural, they like each other because they are them. They understand them. The constant conversation between Ray and the Egons is very fun and has a lot of sciencey terms, but doesn't come back into the storyline. It's just a fun moment. There are several references in this that do come in, some that, at least one that went over my head because I couldn't really pinpoint where it was from, but I did see that there was at least a reference to the Extreme Ghostbusters, and even kind of suggesting that the main lead in the Extreme Ghostbusters is in the regular comic book series, which is fun to like point out themselves that, oh yeah, this is where that comes from, here it is. There is definitely a lot more that we see and a lot more they say, such as talking about different ghosts they fought, talking about how the stories are similar at the beginning. There is the Slimer joke that the Slimer of the Real Ghostbusters is a lot friendlier, much more of a sidekick character, and the one in the comic series is much more to the movie. It's much more like a ghost that just wants to charge and slime Peter every time, and Peter, exhausted by the whole being slime thing, is pretty funny in itself. Overall, this is a very fun book. Like, you probably won't get much out of it if you're not into the Ghostbusters series or even into the movies, but this is one that does have value to it, especially if you are familiar with them, because it's just interesting to see these two talk. It's interesting to see Ray talk to Ray, Peter talk to Peter, and it's fun to see the differences, even though they come from the same source, how different they can diverge from each other. I really wanted to focus on this one because the Real Ghostbusters is going to be an important factor in the upcoming movie Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, because it does take a lot of the same ghost themes while giving it a serious touch like the Ghostbusters comic does. We do see Janine in the trailer wearing a Ghostbuster suit, and we've seen that in this book but also in the cartoon. We've seen it quite a lot actually in the comic itself too. We do see these characters interact, and it is going to be an important factor when watching the movie. And it may not be important to the average viewer who hasn't seen the cartoon or even read the books, which is fine. But if you have, it'll just be a fun nod and reference to those who do get the joke. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick video. This was a fun one for me to talk about, because you know me, I don't really just want to talk about a book, I want to talk about an event that happened in the series itself, and this definitely was an impactful moment for the series, because we do get a lot more Ghostbusters in the future. If you want to hear more about the crossovers, such as the Ghostbusters crossing over with almost every version of their interpretation, or even if you want to talk about their Ghostbuster interactions with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I'm more than willing to talk about that, because I do have all those books too. But if you like this video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below. If you have a suggestion, like I said, comment below. Thanks again for watching, and see you guys next time. See ya.